Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be the 5-position tier list for patch 7.34c, and as always, I look at all the stats, and then I look at the pro games and everything that's happening, and I pretty much make a pub list for not basically the highest tier, but I use them obviously and their stats to establish it, but I make basically a pub list for anything like Divine and below, because that's not only where I'm at, but it just makes sense for the most people, because sometimes things are really powerful at the high end or the high tiers, the 10k games, but they're not always as powerful lower, or vice versa. So that's what I try to do here. So anyway, let's just jump into it. So S tier heroes for the 5 position. The first one's going to be Treant Protector. This hero's pretty crazy because it just dominates early game lanes. Like Leech Seed, I believe, has been buffed a few times. Like you see, well, actually it was nerfed recently. Cooldown was increased because this hero was so good. But despite all of that small nerf, this ability's just been really good in the lane, and then you can pretty much take like 1 point in this early, and it's good enough to, like, the slow and the damage is good enough that it just dominates the lane. So you put some points in these, really secure your lane. Your right click damage has always been insane. I mean, look at this right click damage, absolutely ridiculous. And so you're just going to secure games for your carry in almost every case. You're one of the hardest supports to fight, and then obviously there's so many trees around the lane these days that, like, you're never going to be short the ability to kind of duck in and out. You have decent movement speed as well, all this kind of stuff. And then Living Armor's been kind of changed and buffed over the recent years, where now you just apply Living Armor and it gets like way harder for the enemy to push, where in the past there was like instances of armor or whatever, and if you just like damaged or right click the tower enough, it would just disappear. That isn't the case anymore, so this just like lasts forever. Or not forever, but it lasts the whole time, like the full duration, and it doesn't go away, so it just makes it harder to push for the enemy. And that's really good early game, because people are less incentivized with this meta with the map so big to like group up and push towers and like snowball the game. People just kind of want to farm and do their own thing and just like casually take towers. Now obviously you have certain heroes that like to push towers, but even like those heroes like DK, Death Prophet, a lot of these like tower pushing heroes just like want to force towers early on. Pugna mid, you know, whatever, that kind of stuff. Those aren't super popular right now. People are just kind of farming. Yes, they might be ganking and stuff, but it's not all about the towers, because even at the end of the day, even if you do get the towers, there's so much map that's like available that getting those tier 1 towers aren't as crucial. But that just makes Treant even better, because I've seen plenty of games where just like the tier 1 towers just don't go down because this hero is just able to heal them up, and then later in the game, your ultimate, you just can't count this ultimate out, because you can get stunned through BKB. Any stun through BKB is going to be so good. You end up getting invisible, and then you root people. So you just have all this stuff that you can do, which is very good. And like I said, teamfight ultimates that go through BKB, especially with BKB not being as good as it used to be, and with the fact that you can do like more damage through BKB and all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of heroes in this meta, like PA, like Sven, a lot of these heroes that are strength heroes or whatever, that need to buy BKB, and they need to use their BKB effectively to just win fights. But if you can just like, you see them pop BKB, you're hiding in the trees, invis or whatever, blink in, press R, that's all you need to do, and then they just like, their BKB is wasted. Now obviously they can buy Manta and some of these other things, but not all those heroes like to buy Manta. And so that's just super effective against a lot of these heroes, because a lot of the heroes that are really popular, carry, all these kinds of things, they just buy BKB. They don't really buy Manta. Manta was very popular, you know, when the universal heroes were good, and it's still popular now. It's not like SNY has taken over, but SNY has become more popular even than it was for a while. Like, it's been years since SNY was popular, but it's being bought more and more just because the shift of the balance has kind of shifted there. And so when those dispels aren't as good, if you don't have BKB and another dispel, Treant can just be super annoying, because then if you popped your BKB preemptively for something else and then the tree ults you, you better have Satanic or Manta, basically. I mean, that's pretty much just the long and short of it. Or somebody must have Lotus Orb, and that doesn't happen all the time. Anyway, so this here is just a lane dominator. Is good in the mid game for healing. You don't necessarily buy Meteor Hammer, but you could. And then like the invis, if you ever get an Ags, it's super annoying for the enemy to deal with. It's just all these different things that just add up to this here being really good. But I think the laning stage and just like dominating the lane and securing a lane for your carry is one of the biggest ones. And then the late game ultimate. And then kind of the ultimate late game ultimate hero, which is Warlock. So this hero has always been a beast late game. It's just that's what the hero did, period. But the reason why this hero was like never picked, never good in higher MMRs is because all it did for the first 30 minutes of the game was in the laning stage, it healed the guy in your lane. Like you're just like, oh, here you go. Here's a heal for you. I guess that's all I'm doing. I'm just running around slow and like have good attack range, but whatever, you know, that's all you did. And then your other abilities were kind of like, I mean, your channeled slow ability was basically useless. And then like even through all periods of the game, it was pretty much useless. It just felt horrible. And then Fatal Bonds was good, but it was also another late game ability with your ultimate, with your golem. And so this hero has always been basically below 3k MMR. This hero's probably always been insane because you're going to get to the late game. You're going to be able to dominate games with your ultimate. And that's just how it is. Like so many Herald games, like if this is like the Herald support. But again, it was never popular in the higher MMRs because that early 10 to 20 minutes the laning stage, and then after, if you're just useless and you have the super long cooldown ultimate, and even the first level of ultimate's not good, then you just want to pick a better support with the stun and all these other things. But now, this is the difference. They've buffed this hero a ton. So now one level in the slow is insane. It happens super quickly. It's very hard to get out of. And now the Fatal Bonds is even better because the creeps that die and stuff have these little guys that run at you and like explode on you and do more damage. So there's just all these little things that make this hero actually good now in the laning stage. Like you're not just a heal bot. In fact, you don't even really take this spell. You take these two spells, if anything. You take Fatal Bonds. You probably max this, I would say. Maybe you put a point or two in this if you really are just like a passive lane with a Spectre or something. But also you're going to be taking like at least a point in Upheaval to slow them because if you have any kind of aggressive carry, you're just going to cast this on the ground and then they can't get away unless they have some kind of mobility or blink. So it's just, this hero's really, really good early game in the laning stage now. The laning stage is actually awesome. And then mid game, yeah, it's still not the best. Like I think mid game is really where this hero's weakness is, but again, you can still do some stuff. You still have a good ultimate, even though it's not the best early on. And then you still have Fatal Bonds, which can do a lot of damage, and you still have, really, Upheaval is the big thing. Once you get Glimmer Cape, you can just Upheaval, Glimmer Cape yourself from far away. And it's super annoying for the supports, especially to, like, get to you and to cast Dust or to put a sentry down because, that mid-game timing, they don't have, supports aren't buying BKB, they don't have Blink Daggers, they're not jumping in, all that kind of stuff. So it's very hard to get to you. And then even, like, the carries and the mids and all that kind of stuff, unless they have insane mobility like an Ember or Storm, they also don't really love to like pop BKB just to like find wherever you're casting this stupid Upheaval spell and kill you. And so it can just be really, really annoying in team fights to deal with. So this hero is just far and away extremely good now. Just one of the best heroes, best supports in the game. Finally, I think this hero is going to be picked in TI, which is going to be cool because it's a very exciting and cool hero to watch. Like these ultimates to come down, these golems just hitting people. In the recent Dream League, I think Game and Gladiators with Quinn they were eliminated, I think, in Dream League. Yeah, because this hero had it was just like casting all of his ultimates on Quinn, and he was playing Viper, and they were just like bashing him to death. Like he got to level 25, he had become universal, he had insane farm, but like it didn't matter though. The golems were just destroying him. It was kind of insane. So anyway, this hero is just beyond broken. I think it's going to be picked in TI. I almost guarantee you. And next we have two heroes that I'm going to put in the S tier. Even though I think these two heroes probably could be in a tier of their own. These two heroes are also very, very good. Vengeful Spirit is just insane. Best as a 5 because you're very self-sacrificial. Not as good as a 4, but still can be played as a 4. That's why it was on the 4 list. But this ability, it's just all about this ability. Because all these other abilities do the same thing that they've always done. I mean, Magic Missile has the 2 stuns. I think that's been around for a while. The Ags has been around for a little while. It's just really that this ability is so good now that it does a little bit of everything. It does damage. It does damage reduction. It does minus armor. It gives vision. It's just like, it does everything that you want a spell to do, basically. And so because of that, the laning stage, it's very hard to trade with this hero because it is like an agility hero. Well, it was an agility hero, now it's a universal hero, but it has like the stats of an agility hero in the sense that it's like kind of like a right clicker. In fact, people used to play this hero as like a carry and a core in a lot of ways, not just like an off lane like it is now, but more of like a right click carry core, kind of like how Murano can sometimes be like a carry-ish or mid. So they used to play this hero like that, and so it has that attack animation kind of stuff. So it's very hard to trade with this hero because it has a stun and it has this, basically the best trade ability in the game early on. And so because of that, the laning stage is extremely good. And then later in the game, I mean, you just can't count out Swap. Swap is like a mini Doom. Now, obviously, it doesn't doom you in the sense that you can't cast abilities and all that kind of stuff. But it does in the sense that you just like isolate the target, kills them really quick, your whole team kills them, and then it's like, well, what are you going to do? Or it saves an ally, which is very, very important, because sometimes, you know, you have a carry or a mid that if you just save them from the initiation, then you can turn the fight. And so that can never be counted out. And then if you're ever able to get an Ags, which you pretty much can because these games go so late, then it's just ridiculous because you have insane HP, you have good armor, you have all these other things that you're buffing people up with, you have this low cooldown stun, and then even if they do kill you, well, you're not actually dead. You can just get all your spells off like 4 or 5 times in a fight. So it's just insane. And it's kind of reliable to get there. I mean, these games are going 40, 50 minutes, and you're going to get this Ags because it's like a main thing on the hero. You know, you maybe go a couple small items, and then you're going to go Ags because it's just so good. And that's Venge for you, even though they nerfed it a little bit. Next, we have Ancient Apparition, and this hero is very good because just with all the, like, I think with the power creep, with the tankiness that's happening with all these like regen, satanic, you know, all these like strength heroes that just want to, like Sven, like PA, all these heroes, Gyro, they buy satanic or they have lifesteal, and it's very hard to deal with that because you might burst them, you might go on them, you might get them even down to like 10%, and then they pop satanic and they jump on you and they heal up to full. Like, it's super annoying. So A is an insane counter to that. Very, very good against all these strength heroes, these high HP targets that are becoming more popular right now. And I think that's basically the long and short of it. I mean, yes, the spells have been changed and buffed, but there's not anything crazy different about this hero other than the shard, which it wasn't the last patch. Maybe it was a couple patches ago. The shard basically stuns people upon your ultimate hitting, which I think is like the big change that allowed this hero to be like semi-viable because, you know, all these other spells are just like, this is kind of just like a harassing spell in lane. This is a good vision spell, amps up damage, that's fine, but this is a very unreliable stun. It's really not that good for stun. But now, when you have all these combined with your really good ultimate that's relatively low cooldown, you could even get like 2 off in fights if it's a very, very long fight. Now you have a stun, like a very reliable stun, in the sense that if you hit this ability, which you should be hitting the ability, then it's a stun. And that is very, very good. It just amps up the hero's potential very, very, like, to basically S tier, obviously, but it amps up the hero's potential a lot because before it just felt like in the past you cast this, you hope it hits the enemies, and that's kind of all you did. You just hopefully you don't feed while you're getting some other spells off, but you're probably going to feed if you're in range to get these off. But now you don't have to worry about that. You can actually like get other spells off while they're stunned and all that kind of stuff. And then you cast Cold Feet on someone when they're already stunned, all that stuff. It just makes the hero a lot better. So yeah, that's AA. And then next we have A tier. These are all just like pretty much good supports. They're not broken like some of these ones, but they're just good all around. Undying, just good for all the reasons that Undying has been good for a while now. Having the grab ally or whatever they changed that to is still very good, even though I think they nerfed it here and there a little bit. But really, it's just all about like dominating strength heroes. There's a lot of popular strength heroes. If you might even have like a 2 strength hero offlane duo. Let's say you have like a Earthshaker and I keep thinking about like Sven, but you have like an Earthshaker and even like a Legion or something like that. But any kind of strength hero like that, and you just dominate the lane. Like you can just 1v2 those guys and they just can't walk up, and you're, you know, carry's just sitting there like, oh, I'm just getting free last hit staticking the lane, and you're just meanwhile fighting 1v2 and you're like getting double kills or something like that. That's why this hero is just crazy. And even if you don't, even if you're not playing into strength heroes, it's still really good. It just, obviously it's better against strength heroes, but regardless, I mean, it's still insane. You do insane damage and you get very tanky just from casting one ability. And then if they ever like get close to your tower or try to dive or go in your carry, you just pop Tombstone as well. And then they like, you know, they better have mobility or something or be able to attack the Tombstone really quickly, or they're just going to die. And then we have Venomancer. This hero is probably best as a 5 just because it doesn't have a stun or anything like that, but you don't really love items on the hero. Like, they don't do as much as other heroes, and you also don't farm very quickly. So this hero is like fine to just get the items it gets, and then you just kind of place aggressive vision. You slow people in the early laning stage, so it's very hard to fight into you because you trade really well, and if you have an aggressive carry that you're playing with, you can get very good kills and secure their game for them. And then you don't really mind, like I said, because you're the 5 and you're not getting that much farm. If you get some items, that's great, but then you can just like kind of go in, sacrifice yourself, be very annoying, do a lot of poison damage. Maybe you'll get an Ags and that'll be awesome, but really you're just annoying and kind of self-sacrificial in that way. Don't care if you die. Where a lot of other times, you know, if it's like an off-lane Veno or something like that, it's hard to play this hero where you're kind of frontlining, you're kind of casting your abilities because they're relatively short range, but then you're kind of squishy, so you're just going to get gone on and killed, and then you have this off lane with all this net worth that was farming, and then you're just like dead, and what did you do? You kind of like made a guy poisoned a little bit, and you just like dispelled it, or, you know, whatever. And the ultimate, I think, the other big thing is the ultimate is like way better. It's just super annoying, it slows people like insanely, you know, you just can't escape. It's kind of like upheaval with this guy. It's like you cast this ultimate, they just can't run away. And then obviously it spreads to everyone around you and all that kind of stuff. So if it's in a big team fight and there's a lot of melee heroes, it's just one of those things where they almost have to run away. They have to run away from each other. And you can just do insane amounts in the team fight. And then you don't have to, like I said, worry about if you die as much because you're a support. But you're just dishing out a lot of damage with that hero. Then Elder Titan, I think this hero is just like, it kind of feels like it's either really bad or really good. And right now it's really good because it's matchup dependent. It can do pretty well in the lanes, but it also counters a lot of more popular heroes like Terrorblade, even though Terrorblade is kind of a, you know, pub. I mean, it's like not popular in pub. It's more of like a pro hero. It's still, you know, getting picked a lot because of that in pro matches or in high MMR matches, but it still is very good in lower MMRs. You can kind of dominate with this hero. You can honestly become like a second core, like a second carry, another core, a fourth core from even the 5 position. So you could potentially have like 5 cores. Now the problem with it is it can have bad games. It can have bad matchups. It doesn't have the best reliable stun, but as long as you have stuns on your team, then I think this hero can be just beneficial from just existing, giving vision, all that kind of stuff. So it's really good. I would say, you know, if anything in pubs, maybe I would put this at B tier, but it has a good win rate, has a good pick rate. It is kind of more of a higher tier, higher MMR hero, but that kind of just is what it is. I'm still going to put it there because it is pretty good. And I think you could own with this in lower MMRs if you learn how to play it and you know how to like get items and become a core from the support position. Then Shakiro, just the numbers are pretty good. This one's just like a classic, good, decent, not broken, but not bad support. Like this is just your typical support. You have, you know, magic damage, you have a stun, you have a decent ultimate. They've also changed, I think they upgraded, what is it, the Ags now that like makes the lines or whatever, like the 2 ice paths around the ultimate. So if you do get to that point, it's way better than it used to be, all that kind of stuff. And the pure damage and things like that you'll get to when the game goes late enough. But it's not like, it's not broken by any means, but it is very good. You have a reliable laning stage, you're good at pushing towers, all that kind of stuff once you get more levels. And I think the other thing is because a lot of heroes like to just go to the jungle, this hero is very tanky. It's pretty slow, but it's hard to go on you when you're just like defending a tower. You're very good at just like casting your abilities, defending towers early on, and then just like getting XP and soaking and getting some last hits while you're hiding in the trees, all that kind of stuff. And it makes it harder to push towers while your carry just goes and farms the jungle because the jungle's so, you know, big and it's hard for the enemy to hunt them down that half the time they're going to get more from just jungling anyway. And then you can, you know, you're getting XP, you're getting farm, and they are as well. And just more efficient for everybody. And so any hero like that, which Shakiro is one of the best at, is going to be good in this meta. Then we have Grimstroke, very good 5, a decent 4, probably better as a 5, but is good for all the reasons that I talked about in the 4 position video. It's just they changed the stun. The stun is way better now. It's more reliable. And then this hero, like that was the big thing about the hero is, and I kind of said this in the 4 position video, but it like all the spells are really good, but it's kind of awkward because the stun just is terrible. And so then you could just never get a reliable stun, and it just felt awkward and bad to have a 5 position that just didn't have a reliable stun. But now it's way more reliable and just makes it so that, okay, well now he still has this ability that is very good, that is a reliable stun, so it just amps up the usefulness of the rest of his kit because you can pick him without worrying too much. Then we have Silencer. Silencer is just kind of like a press R bot, where you just kind of press the R button and win the team fight. But the thing about that is this hero actually can do more damage and be more effective now ever since they changed the ability, the 2 abilities, his other 2 abilities, his 2 silence abilities and his slow ability. I always forget what they're called, last word and whatever the other one is. When you combine them together and then they last longer and they tick you down, it's like super annoying. Like if you just max those abilities pretty early on, which you're going to do obviously, it can be really, really hard for squishy heroes, especially heroes that like want to cast abilities too, to like do anything in fights, but even in the lane. Like you can just take out 50% to 75% HP of a support or even an offlaner with this hero. And so you can secure early game fights, you can secure the lane, and then later game, you just really can't count out the ultimate for kind of a similar reason that you can't count out Treant Protector, because, you know, silencing everyone globally is always going to be good, and they need a BKB, they need to have a Manta, and then if you are able to silence them after they pop those, it can be just super effective for your team, and that's always going to be good. Now, I would say, in my gut, this hero is probably better with more team coordination, so this one is a potential, like, lower down to B tier, but the win rate is very high in higher MMR pubs. That's why I'm going to put it here. And you can definitely dominate, but I think if you're going to play this in pubs, you probably want to look to transition to be kind of even a right clicker too, if you're like lower MMR, because this hero can transition from a support if you're having a very good game to like actually do a lot of damage with his glaives. And so you want to kind of look to do that. You don't just want to be a guy that just presses R later on in the game. So that's what you're going to want to do, because if you don't do that, it can feel very useless. Then we have Oracle. Oracle is just a very good save right now with these heroes like PA and like Sven. And these heroes that just want to blow you up with their initiation. Oracle can be very good at countering that. It's also great in lane for all these different reasons that, you know, you're healing, but also the disarm, but also the root. And then you can actually just like snowball in this hero with killing people like crazy if you know what you're doing and you know how to play the hero. You kind of, it's not necessarily a skill shot, but you do have to like know how to cast your abilities and things like that, not cast it incorrectly so that you're like healing the enemy and that kind of stuff. I think really this hero has just slowly gotten more popular ever since they changed the ability that disarms and then prevents magic damage, because before it was like if you used it on an ally, it would disarm them but also prevent magic damage, and it would kind of do the same thing on an enemy. So it was more of a skill shot, or not really a skill shot, but it was skill based of who to cast it on when. But they changed it to basically be like, no, if you cast it on the enemy, it just disarms them. If you cast it on an ally, it just gives them magic immunity, basically. Like they don't take magic damage. It's not a BKB. But yeah, that's pretty much what it does now, and so it's a lot easier. There's not as much skill involved. Now, you still have to choose, okay, which one am I going to do? But it's pretty straightforward, honestly. So it's a lot easier. So that's why the hero is very, very good for all those reasons. Phoenix, they've made the hero a little bit better. They've buffed it up, but also it's kind of like Warlock in the sense that, you know, these games are going a lot later, and this hero, it really is a late game hero. It has a decent laning stage, but can get countered sometimes. The early egg is pretty bad, even though you can use it if you're grouping up, and you're not grouping up that much. So if it's only like 2 people going in, you know, a Phoenix and someone else, even 3 people, level 1 egg, they're just going to focus you and kill you half the time. But then if you do get to the late game 40, 50 minutes, you get some items like this hero, which is absolutely insane. Insane team fight. Level 3 egg is ridiculous. You can get a refresher on top of that and eggs, you know, whatever else. And this team fight is crazy, just like Warlock. And so it's just kind of like a budget Warlock, because the early game and the mid game, it's a little bit weaker than something like a Warlock these days. So that's why it's kind of not as good, but it's still very good. And then Chen, it's just up here because it has a good win rate and it's getting picked a decent amount, but honestly, like, it maybe even could be B tier, but this is just like a pro hero. This is just a high MMR pub hero. That's pretty much all it is. And I wouldn't really pay too much attention to it. I just put it where it is based on the win rate. It's not like broken, but it is getting picked and it has a decent win rate. I think it gets picked a little bit and it has like a 55% win rate, which is good. I mean, that doesn't mean it's like terrible. So, but I usually feel like it's either A or S tier, or it's like D, F tier. That's kind of just how it feels like it is most of the time. But you honestly never see Chen. Like, who picks Chen? It's like griefing half the time under like 10k MMR. So anyway, that's A tier. Then we can move on to B tier. These heroes are pretty good, and they're either on the upswing or downswing usually. So Nature's Prophet, I'm still going to put this as a 5 position, but it's kind of getting way worse. I would not pick it as a 5 position. I would pick it more as a 4. It just, I don't know, half the time it feels like griefing your team if you pick this 5, because I've seen people pick it. They're like, oh, I'm going to try to become a core and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, no, this is bad. Just stop doing this. Stop griefing my games, please. And then Marcy, probably a better 5 than a 4, probably for the most part, because yeah, obviously you can buff up your carry and you can secure the laning stage and all that kind of stuff. And it's pretty good in the lane. It always has been. But I think with the 5 position, you don't have to worry as much about like going in and like fighting people with your ultimate. That can be great, but you're more of like a sacrificial jump in, stun, you know, reposition somebody, buff up your carry, and then maybe die. And then like maybe if you get an ultimate off and you can fight somebody, that's great, but that's like a bonus. It's not necessarily needed. And then Dazzle, actually kind of more of a mid these days. I didn't put it on the mid list because even though I have actually seen it a few times in pubs and I feel like it was pretty good, I honestly don't know if it was the Dazzle or it was the fact that I'm picking CK and I have I've won 25 out of 30 games recently. Like I'm pretty much just spamming CK, just owning every game. I don't know if that's what made us win or because I had a Dazzle mid. I don't know. The Dazzle mid did pretty well, but I couldn't tell which it was. I've seen Topson play it. It seems decent. but I'm not 100% sure where exactly it fits yet. I don't know if it's going to be like a TI pick. I feel like people are still sort of figuring it out. It's kind of still at the experimental phase where it's like, this could be good. It seems okay, but maybe it's actually trash once people figure out like how to actually deal with it. So I probably should have included it in the mid list, but one I just kind of forgot about. But in any case, from the support role, it's mostly a 5, and I think it's decent. It's just a little bit awkward because when you're in the 5 position, you don't love using your ultimate, basically. You don't love like pressing your ultimate to lose health because you're not going to be healing as much as from the mid lane. You're not going to have as many items, that kind of stuff. You're not going to be buying ags early, all those things. But it is very good in laning stage. The save, unless there's an axe on the enemy team or something, is always going to be good. And your heal can't be counted out. But early on the lane stage, the Q is really good. And the Hex later on when you get the Shard, very, very good as well. So just kind of middle of the road hero. Early on the lane stage, you're going to secure first blood with this hero like all the time because you can just like chase people down. And then if you ever get the enemy support caught out like away from tower, you can just chase them down, which is very, very good. So this hero's gotten buffs a lot recently, or changes at least. It's hard to sometimes tell. They just change the hero and you're like, I don't even know what this does. But yeah, clearly it's been buffed because now it's becoming more popular. Middle of the road, we'll see if it kind of, skyrockets up to the A and S tier and even from the mid lane, but that's yet to be seen. Next, we have Disruptor. This kind of hero's been hanging around. I think maybe it was A or S tier in a few patches ago, and then they changed some things about it. So it's still viable. It's still pretty good, just not as broken as it once was. And so just middle of the road here. Definitely, you could probably pick this hero every game, though. I mean, obviously it does have matchup problems sometimes, but if everything else is banned or you don't feel like there's anything good right now because all these heroes are getting banned, it's like this has a good team fight ultimate. And really the thing about this hero is because it goes late game a lot and you get ags eventually, that's what really makes this hero so good. Early game pretty good, lane stage pretty good, mid game can kind of be like an and then once you get ags, it's like then it changes the game. So that's Disruptor. Io just overall decent. It's kind of like a Chen hero in the sense that it's either very good or very bad, and it's really mostly picked at higher MMRs, so I won't spend too much time on it. But Io's decent, especially in certain matchups where you can just like link up to a carry and just like amp up their attack speed and just own the game. And then Bane, I think Bane is a little bit underrated because this hero's ability, what is it, Enfeeble or whatever? Let's look at what Enfeeble does. This is insane. I mean, obviously if you max it out, but like even level 1, 55% damage reduction, like what even is that? That's insane. That's absolutely ridiculous. Like you just like go in, cast this on the off lane, and they like just can't last it. Like what? That's kind of crazy. I think people just really underestimated the hero. It has a good win rate, a decent pick rate, but not like anything broken. I just think people are underestimating it. The problem is obviously if you get ags, that's great, but like there's this weird mid game where like what are you doing? You're just kind of like pressing R on a guy and like glimmering yourself, but that doesn't always work because you're just like stationary. So it can have awkward moments, but honestly, pressing Enfeeble on people is just kind of ridiculous. Shadow Demon, good matchups, bad matchups, very squishy, very easy to just die, but the save is very good. Laning Sage can be like kind of meh because you are spamming out your, you're just giving free stick charges, and sometimes it can just feel like, oh, what are you even doing? Like, this is kind of a useless hero. But then sometimes against heroes that just like basically Phantom Assassin, Ursa, these heroes that you can just click your ability on, I think your ultimate, and then just like getting permanently dispelled, and they just like can't crit, or Ursa can't use his Fury swipes, all that kind of stuff. That can be very, very good against some heroes. But then some other heroes don't really care at all. You just press it on them, but they're just going to blink stun or whatever, and then just hit you anyway, and they don't really care. So it is matchup dependent that way, but can be very good. Also one of these heroes that isn't played that much at lower MMRs because people don't really understand how to play around it, especially because you can grief sometimes with Disruption. Clockwork, it's all about, hey, do you just like hook in and die, and can you run people down in the early game? Similar to the 4 position, just an okay hero, probably better as a 5 though, because if you're going to be self-sacrificial, you don't mind dying as a Clockwork if you go in, and a lot of times after 20 minutes or so, you're just going to be jumping in and dying. That's just what's going to happen, unless you're like snowballing and crushing the game, and you get like Orchid, Blade Mail, all this crazy stuff on the hero, which then you just win the game, whatever. Anyway. Shadow Shaman, just like your basic stunning guy. I mean, I feel like he's the Shakiro of the B tier. He's okay. He's decent. He's middle of the road. Or like, Venge has the stun. Shakiro has the stun. These just like classic supports. Shadow Shaman is that. He can play 5. Not the best, but definitely not the worst. Just kind of middle of the road classic support. And then Dawnbreaker can be played as support pretty much support or offlane these days. And the same reason it can be played as a 4 position is because the ultimate you can't count out. The save is just insane because people cannot press BKB and dodge the stun anymore. So when you cast ultimate on people, like your carry, to save them, they are going to get saved almost every time unless they're getting like super bursted very, very quickly. And so that can just never be counted out. Plus, with the size of the map now, even from the 5 position or the 4 position, you can farm like on the other side of the map and get your farm and become like another core. Now, you're not going to be buying Deso or Echo Saber and stuff like that as a Dawnbreaker, but you can get Ags, you can get Shard and all these other things, and you can do a significant amount of damage and be very annoying as a Dawnbreaker 5. Next, we have C tier. Unfortunately, Witch Doctor's down here. I would say Witch Doctor, like the lower MMR you go, if you're in Herald, this hero might even be A or like S tier still, even though its hero's gotten nerfed a lot, because a few patches ago, it definitely was S tier. It was completely broken. It was getting picked all the time. It was ridiculous. It's still very good. And like I said, the lower MMR you are, the better it is, but it's definitely fallen off a lot, mainly because of the range of the ultimate and the things that make it, which is what makes it good. Like the ultimate and earlier on, the Maledict are very good. They kill people like super easily, but because the range has been reduced and all these other nerfs, basically, it's just not nearly as good at the high MMRs. I haven't seen it nearly as much in my games as I used to, but if you're a good Witch Doctor player, you know how to position the hero, you know how to get off good ultimates in the fights and those kinds of things and not just feed, this hero can still dominate games. Lich, just kind of middle of the road. I look at this hero now as like, sort of, I mean, it has stuns, it has slows, it just does a little bit of everything. The big thing is there's a lot of dispels these days, so dispelling Frost Armor is very good. But if there isn't any really good dispels on the enemy team, which obviously you're going to be picking it first anyway because you're picking support. But if there's no good dispels on the enemy team, it can be very good. If you have a good way to like cast Shard and cast Ult and grab a guy and pull him in, you can dominate games. I can definitely see some Liches like own games, but then sometimes Lich just feels like food. And that's the problem. It's a little bit all or nothing, and you have to really position the hero well. Murano, I'm putting in this list, which I don't know, I might even put her D tier, because as a 5, I just don't love it. In fact, you know what? Screw this. I'm putting her down here. Even though the win rate says like, oh, a 5 position is viable, I don't care. Don't pick Murano 5, guys. I almost would put it F. Don't pick Murano 5. Stop it. This hero's fine. It's okay, but it's not that good. Just don't pick it. It was way better before, and it's more of a 4 because of just the nature of the hero. You don't love having your 5 position just like not have a reliable stun and stuff. And laning stage 5 position, like if I had a 5 position Murano on my team in my lane, I'd just be like, what am I even going to do? Like, this sucks, because a lot of carries don't have stuns. Where playing from the 4 position, a lot of offlaners do have stuns, so that's kind of the difference here. Tusk, actually more viable as a 5 than you would think. Can be very good, can be tanky, can run in. And then a lot of these aggressive carries that can just like either want to just farm after a few minutes, you know, after the 5-minute mark or so. Tusk is pretty self-sufficient in lane. And then he can go around ganking people once the carry transitions to the jungle, which is very good. And so, again, with some of the aggressive carries, he can also snowball the lane, kill the enemy. Very good at trading with the support, all that kind of stuff, but just not the best overall, because this hero definitely does have weaknesses, and sometimes you can feel like I have a Tusk 5, like this sucks. Keeper of the Light, getting better. Like this hero I think was like F tier. It's kind of becoming more of a core even these days. It's getting buffed back to where it was a year or two ago when it was like really good mid, and then, you know, it had portions where it was good with Medusa. Now it's still decent, but again, you want to have that hero on your team that you can buff up with the chakra magic, and like just give them mana, which they're going to spam mana, so they need to be a hero that spams that, and these low cooldown abilities that they want to spam as well. So you're just like very matchup dependent in that way, because if you don't have that, and sometimes you can feel like food too, it can just be really bad. And then bounty, it's very situational again. Like, you know, it can be very good with the track, and you can even dominate lanes with it, but then it's very situational, because other times you can be like, similarly to, you know, a Tusk or whatever, like, dude, I have a bounty 5. This sucks. Oh, and I think I forgot Crystal Maiden. Did I talk about Crystal Maiden? I think I just skipped over when I put Murano down there. So yeah, but that's bounty 5. Just like all or nothing, very weird. I would kind of feel like it's grief, but it can win. It can be very good sometimes. And then Crystal Maiden, maybe I forgot about this hero, but I think it's just like, of all the classic heroes, you know, like a Shadow Shaman, like a Shakiro, you know, Vengeful Spirit, whatever, it feels not nearly as good because it's way squishier. Like, of all the heroes that you're just going to die, the Crystal Maiden is just the hero that you're just going to die. Now, if you're good at the hero, you have really good positioning, and you don't feel like you're just going to get jumped on and die in the laning stage, you can actually just own the laning stage, like with your 2 abilities and with an aggressive carry. And then later game, if you are able to get like an Ags, if you're able to get like your Ags Shard, Glimmer Cape, those kinds of things, you actually can do really, really well in team fights and provide a lot. But it's asking a lot for Crystal Maiden to do that because it's harder for this hero to sit in the side lanes and farm. Like a tanky hero like Shakiro, you're just more effective at farming the side lanes safer because you have a better stun and you can cast from range or tankier, all that kind of stuff. I feel like Crystal Maiden, like if you see a Crystal Maiden like cast an ability in a lane, everyone just thinks Crystal Maiden, squishy, terrible hero. Just, I don't care. I'm diving the tower to kill this hero. Like it's just, I swear that's what people think. And so it's just harder to get your farm, harder to actually be effective in the game, but it can be done. Then last of like the viable heroes, we have D tier. I already talked about Murano, even semi-viable. Enchantress is not good right now. It always feels like Enchantress is S or D. I feel like you could still make it work, but it's just not great. Lion, it's just more of a 4. You just don't love seeing this hero as a 5. You just like want items on the hero. You want Blink. You maybe even want, you know, other aggressive items on the hero because it just feels bad to have a Lion. It's kind of like a Crystal Maiden in that way, even less utility though, where it's like, yeah, you're stunning people, but that's it. And your ultimate, like whatever. It's not that great from a 5 position. You don't really want like burst damage like that on your 5 position, especially in like stealing kills and stuff like that. And then he is literally just food, like 100% just food. Then Pugna, just again, a hero that feels like it's S or D because, you know, it's either healing everybody like a lot or it's not doing anything and just terrible. And it's kind of terrible now because it's got nerfed a bunch. Batrider, viable, definitely as a support. Probably more of a 4, but can be a 5. So that's why it's here, but it's just not that good. So probably only pick it if you're like a really good Batrider player. Spirit Breaker, more of a 4. Just, again, it's kind of like Tusk or Bounty, but even like worse, where it's like, dude, I have a Spirit Breaker 5. This sucks. This guy's just like running up slow, just like kind of barely hitting people. But if you can get away with it, it can be really good. Ogre, just not good right now. I mean, as much as they try to like make this hero semi-viable, it just feels so bad. I mean, early on, yeah, you have your stun, but like who cares? And you have your like slowing damage over time ability, and that's okay. I mean, your lane stage is like fine. You're kind of tanky, but even so, I think they've made that like worse in general. I think it used to be really good a few like a year or so ago, and then they nerfed like those aspects, so it's not even that like bruiser as much as it used to be early on in the laning stage. Like it's not like a tree. Like you'd way rather have a tree these days. And then like later, like I don't know. Really, it's just like, can I buff up my heroes with attack speed? And that's just like so boring and not cool. I mean, it can be very, very good, but like not really. It's not going to be that good compared to like all these other big team fight ultimates, all these other things that these heroes offer. This hero is just like, I stun you, maybe slow you, and just I hope your attack speed's good, and that's it. I mean, not great. Abaddon, this hero has just not been in the meta forever. If anything, this is like more like a carry / off lane that people pick every once in a while. It can be very annoying, but the like saving 5 position just is not good. People are so much better at playing around the ultimate these days, and it just feels like, what do you really do? Like, yeah, you save, but you're in like melee range to save people, and then people just go on you, then they ignore you for like 5 seconds when your ultimate pops, and they just kill you. Winter Wyvern, again, not great. The stun through BKB is fine, but they nerfed the hero when it was really good as like a core, playing like off lane or mid as a universal hero, and they just nerfed it overall, and it just made it worse overall. Like, they didn't just nerf the core aspects of it, they nerfed the hero in general and just made it a worse support too. So now it's not a core and it's not a very good support. And then Omninight, this hero's win rate I think is like atrocious as like a 5. I think it's in the 30 percentile. So I almost like was debating giving it F tier, but I was really reserving F tier for like the heroes that are just not 5s. So this hero could still potentially play 5. I think people are underestimating this hero in general from the offlane, from 5 position. But I mean, again, dispels just destroy the hero, and there's so many of them these days in the game, and that's really the big problem. And then F tier, we have none of these heroes are viable. Techie's more of a 4, but just has been nerfed into the ground. Same thing with Snapfire. Hero was just nerfed into the ground. Kind of got the Winter Wyvern treatment in the sense that like they nerfed the core version and just like dumpstered the whole hero. Like they nerfed the hero in general, and now it's just terrible. Gyro, if anything, if it's a support, it's a like a 4 position. You don't want a Gyro 5. You don't want a Clinkz 5 either. Like, these are all like carries from the 4. Stop it. Enigma, dead hero. Stop picking it. It's just not, doesn't exist. This hero does not exist. Stop it. Wind Ranger, like what? Don't pick it. Just don't pick it, dude. It doesn't do anything. Like, oh yeah, I have the shard at freaking 15 minutes in and like pushes you. Stop it. Ricky, like, get this out of here. Stop it. Zeus, maybe, no, but like maybe. So it's still going to be there. And then Pudge, stop picking Pudge 5. If I see one more person in my games being like, oh, Pudge 5 is viable. Like, everyone knows Pudge 5 is not a real thing. Everyone knows that. And then, like, once every few months, you get a guy picking Pudge 5 in your game, and then you, like, say, like, lol Pudge 5 or something when you lose, you know, because you're toxic. And, you call him out and being like, well, I have a Pudge 5. What am I supposed to do? And then him or like even another guy in the game like argues like Pudge 5 is viable. And you're like, what are you talking about? That's never been true. That's never been true. Stop picking Pudge 5. Stop it. It does. Honestly, this hero plays every position other than 5. Stop picking this hero as a 5 position, please. Anyway, that's my Pudge rant. So that's F tier. Stop picking these heroes at all. Even though I really like Snapfire, actually, it's one of the heroes that I'm really good with. It's one of my favorite supports, but right now it's just so bad I don't even pick it. Anyway, that is my 5 position support tier list for 7.34C. Yeah, that's it. So anyway, as always, guys, in the comments, let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe, all of those kinds of things. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.